Inside of Tyler's apartment, he sits at the edge of his bed, pulling on his hoodie. The room is dim, messy, hand-me-down furniture, a guitar case propped in the corner, dishes stacked in the sink. Carl's voice drips faintly from the other room, laughing at something on his phone. Tyler pauses, tying his shoes. His gaze drifts to the window. Through the thin blinds, he can just make out the tree line behind the complex, the small opening in the woods where his pet Charo is buried. Sunlight breaks through in narrow shafts, cutting into the fog. For a moment, he just stares. Quiet, heavy. He exhales, grabs his bag, and heads out. At the exterior of the woods, behind the apartment complex, fog threads through the trees. Tyler kneels in a small clearing where a wooden cross marks a fresh mound of dirt. Her name Charo is carved into it with a pocket knife. Her worn collar dangles from the cross. Faintly jiggling in the breeze, a few wildflowers hand-picked rest at the base. Tyler's voice is low and steady. "Morning, girl." Tyler has a quick flashback. A small tub of rat poison tipped over on the apartment kitchen floor. Charo's paws in the powder. Tyler crouched beside her later, panic in his face. Carl in the doorway, arms crossed, tone cold. Should have kept that flea bag out of the kitchen. Carl yells from a distance. "Hey Ty, I'm heading to the cafeteria. You coming?" Tyler exhales sharply, pushing the image away. Tyler stands, brushing dirt from his hands, walks out of the woods towards Carl and says, "Not today." Carl steps closer, eyes narrowing. "I thought you were with me." Tyler meets Carl's eyes, then looks away, silently. Carl smirks, yanking a tiny, blood-stained cooler from behind his leg. He pops it open, the faint wet gleam of organs visible inside. He shakes it once, like showing off a lunchbox. Carl says, walking off, cruelly, "Yeah, thought so. Go play in the woods like a weirdo, as real men eat." Footsteps fade toward campus. Tyler lingers a moment longer, then notices a PAS recruit flyer caught in a low branch. The bold text reads, "Join the fight, today at campus lawn." He folds it carefully and tucks it into his jacket pocket. Tyler walks back toward the apartment path, shoulders squared, a flicker of resolve in his eyes. Tyler lost Charo. Carl started listening, not to the pain, but to the shadows that twisted it. It's not the silence that breaks you. It's what you choose to hear. And I've heard those whispers before. I keep asking myself, what causes more harm? Standing up at the wrong time, or staying quiet when it matters? At the university parking garage, morning time, Zach's silver four-door Nissan Versa rolls up the ramp, tires crunching over scattered leaves. The rising sun casts long shadows across the concrete. 2 years ago, I was walking to gigs in the rain with holes in my shoes. Now I got a car? Still doesn't feel real, Zach thinks to himself. Zach parks near the stairwell. LockDown lounges in the passenger seat, legs on the dash, hoodie halfway zipped. LockDown says, grinning, "Yo, this random dude came up to me while I was freestyling downtown yesterday. Said Columbia's got a glowing green vegan superhero." Zach says, reaching for the keys. "Yeah?" LockDown says while laughing. "Swore he saw some dude shoot vines out of a guitar. Said it was like a plant-powered light show. Probably high as hell." Zach pops the trunk and grabs his guitar case. He slings it over his shoulder with quiet confidence. The light catches on a faint green shimmer in the wood grain. Zach says, casual but firm, "Maybe he's right. I do have superpowers." LockDown pauses mid-step, eyeing him. His grin fades just a little. "Wait, are you actually being serious right now?" Zach says while smirking, without answering. "Come on, we'll be late." The two exit the garage, stepping into the sunlight. Campus buildings rise ahead. Zach walks with calm purpose. LockDown follows, still unsure what to make of what he just heard. Zach and LockDown walk up the sidewalk toward the dining hall, guitar slung over Zach's back. LockDown glances at him, hands in hoodie pocket, skeptical but intrigued. So, what's the next move, hero? You just gonna glow at people till they give up burgers? Zach says while smirking, something like that. Watch, you'll see. It's not just smoke and mirrors. LockDown mutters to himself, half grinning. Yeah, starting to believe that. They reach the dining hall entrance. LockDown leans against the wall outside, hands in his hoodie pocket. LockDown says, alright, I'll wait out here till you're on break, then we can jam for a bit. Zach nods and says, deal. Zach walks away, alone down the hallway, the buzz of the dining hall faint ahead of him. Zach pulls out his phone mid-step. On screen, his YouTube channel, username ZmanTheVegan, subscriber count 70. Zach thinks to himself, 2 weeks ago, I had just 11 subscribers. Now I'm at 70. 5 years of grinding as Zach. And in 2 weeks as ZmanTheVegan, I've grown nearly 10 times faster. He glances at the screen, a faint, almost disbelieving smile crossing his face. Then he slips the phone back into his pocket and pushes open the door into the dining hall. Zach walks into the campus dining hall with a glowing guitar on his back. The air sparkles subtly around him. A few small animals, a squirrel, a raccoon, and a couple of birds peek in from a window near the ceiling. With new purpose and power, Zach returned to the dining hall, ready to spark a revolution, one plate at a time. Zach greets a few students with a warm nod, his presence calm and grounded. He slips into the staff locker room and gently props his guitar in the corner, careful not to let it touch the wet floor. Back in the dining hall, kitchen workers glance his way, oddly attentive. One bird perches on a ceiling rafter above, quietly watching. Zach thinks to himself, every voice matters, every choice a ripple. Many students hesitating at the grill. The glowing shimmer of Zach's presence touches the food as it's placed in trays. One student says, actually, I'm gonna try the lentil loaf today. There's a magical shimmer as the lentil loaf glows briefly. The student takes a bite and smiles with unexpected joy. The food held music now. Now, many plant-based options were being brought in to the salad bar. Now that vegan options were more popular, Plaza 700 had to start preparing more plant-based options, and they were bringing many of them out into the dining hall. Zach, stuck behind the grill, raises his hand discreetly toward the salad bar. Green light pulses faintly from his fingertips. The leafy greens start glowing subtly as they're placed out. The vegan burgers, the lentil loaf, all of it glowing. But even with growing power, Zach couldn't be everywhere at once. The squirrel and raccoon tiptoe across a narrow overhead beam, carrying a tray of lentil loaf together. Birds swoop down from the rafters above the dining hall, gliding silently over the busy kitchen. No one notices as they dart between hanging lights and beams. They land near the prep station, just outside of sight. With practiced teamwork, they lift small bowls of quinoa, greens, and beans, lightweight, plant-based items, and flutter them over to Zach's grill station. Zach doesn't look up while flipping something on the grill with one hand. He waves the other gently over the hovering bowls. A faint green glow pulses from his fingers, seeping into the food like a blessing. The birds nod, almost like a bow, then carry the bowls back to the serving line before anyone sees. Zach looks over and smiles with gratitude. Good looking out, team, he whispers. Zach is on the grill, one hand flipping veggie burgers, and the other hand glowing faintly green. His mouth opens as he half sings, half hums while working. The sound feels like it's carried on, the steam rising off the food. Zach sings soft, almost to himself, and then gradually gets louder and louder. And it's alright on the bright side. It's alright with light inside your eyes. It's alright on the bright side. It's alright. The raccoon and squirrel balance the lentil loaf tray on their heads, wobbling dramatically but keeping rhythm with Zach's tune. The squirrel says, swaying like a backup dancer, catchy. He cooks, he sings, multitasking hero. The raccoon says, with a mouthful, groovy. From outside the dining hall window, LockDown watches the scene. The music carries faintly through the glass, a soft echo of Zach's voice as the animals dance and work in sync. That's more than food he's serving. That's soul food, says LockDown while smiling to himself. Outside the dining hall window, LockDown stands. Leaning against the wall, peeking in through the glass, he sees the raccoon and squirrel carrying trays and the birds diving gracefully to help Zach. Then the squirrel darts into the dining area and tosses a stack of glowing mixtapes onto a crowded student table. I knew they'd hand out his mixtape, LockDown says, grinning to himself. Still at the window, the squirrel and raccoon scamper back toward the kitchen and slip through a vent and emerge from another just outside near LockDown. The squirrel pauses, stands tall on her hind legs, and locks eyes with them. Then the squirrel says, playfully but sharp, "Of course we did. You knew we'd do it. Now we know you knew we'd do it. So now you know we know you knew." The squirrel casually flicks several of Zach's glowing mixtapes onto the outdoor tables, where the students relax in the grass and on the wide cement steps. She darts off with the raccoon giggling. LockDown freezes, jaw slightly open. The raccoon says, "Yeah," with an almost full mouth from eating fruit cups, then he nods solemnly and scurries off. LockDown says to himself, wide-eyed, "Am I hallucinating?" He rubs his eyes, still staring at the window in disbelief as he picks up a mixtape of Zach's. The interior dining hall entrance. Carl steps into the cafeteria, a smirk on his face. He expects to see his domain. Instead, his grin falters. The place is alive with music. Zach sings mid-song, vines glowing faintly. Squirrels and raccoons weave through students, balancing trays. Birds swoop gracefully overhead, dropping vegan pamphlets onto tables. Carl's eyes narrow, fury boiling. Carl thinks to himself, jagged, "This was my hall, my stage, and they're cheering him?" The hallway outside of Todd's office. Carl strides up, jaw clenched, a small blood-stained cooler dangling from his hand. He bangs on the door, hard, fast, annoyed. "Yo, Todd, you might want to see this." Without waiting, Carl turns on his heel, stomping off toward the cafeteria line. He shifts the cooler in his grip, muttering under his breath, face twisted in a huff. Todd looks up from a stack of raw meat and paperwork. Through the frosted glass of his office window, he catches a faint blur, green glow, movement, cheering. His lip curls. What the heck? Todd thinks to himself as he looks out his office window. Todd storms out of his office, slamming open the double doors. His eyes go wide when he sees Zach casually receiving a tray of lentil loaf from a squirrel and a raccoon. Todd shouts, What is this? Are you using raccoons to run the grill station now?" Zach freezes mid-reach. The animals pause, tense. Students glance over in confusion, whispering. Todd says, ranting, pointing at Zach, "You think this is a joke? You think you're some kind of hero? Well, listen up, ZmanTheVegan. I'm T-Bone Todd, and you're done here. If I see those animals again, when I come back, you're fired." A student records the scene on their phone, whispering to a friend. The student says, whispering, "Is he training raccoons now? This dude's a legend." The raccoon and squirrel glance at each other. The squirrel says, whispering, "Told you we need a food handler's license." The raccoon lingers, finishing off a banana. T-Bone Todd snarls and slams his fists down, startling the animals. The squirrel bolts, but the raccoon stays a moment too long. Todd picks up the tiny cafeteria hat the raccoon had been wearing and smashes it to the ground. The raccoon flinches, then casually tosses the banana peel behind his back. It hits Todd squarely in the chest as the raccoon bolts. The raccoon says, squeaking, "What can I say? Killer fruit cups. Plaza 700 still understaffed though." Todd growls and grabs a tray, hurling it towards the raccoon. Then the raccoon says, "Also, tell your chef to stop overcooking the lentils." But all Todd hears is squeaks. Todd turns and storms back into his office, muttering darkly under his breath. The door slams shut. Zach exhales slowly, tension still in his face, as he looks toward the animals now outside the building. Their reflections shimmer faintly in the late afternoon sun against the glass walls. Zach thinks to himself, the tower falls when enough hands push. Inside a shadowy realm, blackened skies, molten ground, broken towers, the Rotfather's lair, a throne of twisted roots, bone, and sludge. The Rotfather sits, a decayed godlike being with rotten wings and cracked thorny antlers, stitched flesh sagging over divine ruin. Maggots crawl through his ribs. He glares into a swirling molten mirror showing Zach's growing influence. Then the Rotfather says,
"He is awakening them. That spark should have been snuffed."
Flashback to years ago, under a bridge. Zach lies asleep beneath the bridge, curled beside his guitar. Moonlight flickers between passing clouds. A faint wind swirls. A tall figure, Mortem, emerges from the shadows, silent and watchful. He kneels beside Zach, eyes sorrowful but resolved. Mortem gently touches Zach's chest with 2 fingers. From that point of contact, dark shadow chains bloom, spectral and semi-transparent, winding around Zach's limbs and torso like veins. Zach twitches in his sleep, unaware. A whisper of pain crosses his brow. Mortem thinks to himself, I did it at the Rotfather's command, but not to punish the one they call Zach. Not truly. I hoped that binding the boy's light might earn the Rotfather's trust, might stir some faint memory of the light he once carried. Mortem fades into the darkness as quickly as he appeared. The chains remain, pulsing faintly, gently tightening as Zach breathes. Now back to present day, in the Shadow Realm, at the throne room. Behind the throne, a twisted, shadow-choked vine coils around a small, dying rabbit. One of the many animals Rotfather has been feeding on, or feeding to dark things. It breathes shallow, eyes dim. Mortem kneels beside it. He gently cups it in his hands. A soft, pale blue glow pulses from his palms. The rabbit exhales one last time, not in agony, but in peace. Its body dissolves into glowing dust. The rotted vine shrivels to ash. Mortem rises and turns to face the throne. He stands tall, a pale, cloaked figure with fading kindness in his eyes, where the last traces of dying light flicker. A scythe rests across his back, its handle twisted from rotting vines. Not a weapon, but a symbol. Death without violence, light without warmth. A demon general says, mocking, The shepherd of souls now chokes on decay. You should have stayed in the sky, angel. The Rotfather says, snarling,
You failed me, Mortem.
Mortem says, quietly, eyes dimming, I was never meant to stop life. A pause as shadows creep closer, then louder, more firmly. Mortem says, louder, with a strained bow, I won't fail you again, master. The Rotfather roars, rage shaking the decaying chamber. Maggots burst from his ribs and crawl across the molten floor. Shadows twist violently around the throne. Mortem does not flinch, but his jaw tightens ever so slightly. The Rotfather says low, venomous,
If you do, there won't be a next time. I'll find some other wretch to wear your title, twist some demon into your shape, and let him harvest what you won't. You know I can't unmake you, but I can leave you sealed, forgotten in some festering fold of time, and watch your purpose rot in another's hands. So be useful, or be nothing.
turning towards his generals, voice rising.
Rot the hall where he dares to shine. Rot the light he plants in others. Snuff out their hope, and he will wither.
As the demon generals slither off into portals of smoke, Mortem lingers. He glances once more at the ashes where the rabbit was, then up at the throne. He says nothing. His expression is unreadable. Not loyalty, not rebellion, just loss. Mortem's alone after the generals leave, and Mortem lingers, gazing into the molten mirror. It briefly flickers, showing a glowing, winged version of himself long ago. His expression tightens. Then Mortem whispers, That face is no longer mine. Long before he judged souls, Mortem was light, balance, not power, was his calling. Back in the earthly realm, in the interior of the cafeteria, the back hallway, Zach unties his apron and drapes it over a hook. He pushes open the back door, stepping into the service alley. Then Zach thinks to himself, finally, fresh air. Break time. The alley is unusually still. A tipped trash can sits empty. Not even the stray cats that usually linger are around. Zach thinks to himself, strange. Usually they're waiting for scraps. As Zach takes a few steps, movement explodes around him. Birds rocket upward from telephone wires. Squirrels bolt across the fence line. A dog breaks loose from its owner's grip, yanking down the block. Even the insects seem to scatter in frantic waves. Then Zach thinks, what the? Zach slows as he rounds the corner of the building, toward the front plaza. The tension on his face lingers. Nature always runs first. Zach slows in the alley, watching the birds scatter overhead. A massive shadow streaks across the brick wall beside him. Leathery wings, claws for an instant, then gone. Zach thinks to himself, tensely, did I just... He rubs his eyes, unsettled, then keeps walking toward the plaza. He had no name for what passed him by, but the animals knew. Now, in front of Plaza 900, LockDown sits on the curb, his speaker beside him, with microphone in hand. He's been waiting the whole shift, tapping out a beat on his knee, calm and steady. LockDown says, grinning, "About time, Z. I thought you forgot me out here." Zach forces a small smile, still uneasy from what he just saw. He takes his seat next to LockDown. And then Zach thinks to himself, animals don't scare that easy. Back in Plaza 700, Todd watches from his office window, angry. Students walk out carrying fresh vegan meals, smiling. They're softening, forgetting the taste of what matters. He opens the fridge inside. Raw meat glistens, unnatural. A strange shadow clings to it. A butcher's invoice from Todd's farm peeks out. Todd owned the farm that supplied the campus meat. Every burger funded more animals, more recipes, more indulgence. He grabs a giant roasted turkey leg, steam curling upward. As he takes a primal bite, shadowy tendrils wrap around his face. The butcher's feast became a pact, a glutton's promise to sacrifice life for flavor. The demon general of gluttony slithers unseen through the air vents, grotesque and slick. His wings leak black grease. Gluttony didn't enter with a roar. He seeped in with the smell. You were made of this, butcher of joy, king of excess. The shadow demon whispers. Then Todd has a flashback. Young Todd, 9 years old, stands over a squealing pig in a wooden shed. His hand trembles as he holds a knife, his face pale. An older man, his father, stands behind him, arms crossed, nodding in approval. Then, in the next moment, Todd's expression shifts. Fear melts into gluttonous, excited hunger. He lunges forward. At first, he wept like any child, but his appetite sang louder than his sorrow. And once he tasted power, he never looked back. It wasn't about need or survival. It was about domination over the helpless, over the land, over life itself, and the shadows crowned him for it. At the university campus, midday, a colorful student-organized event bustles with activity. Banners flap in the breeze. Green Future Fair, Sustainability, Tech, and Food Justice. Brent under a tent labeled Protectors for All Species. He wears sunglasses and a PAS badge hidden beneath a canvas vest. On a table, trays of vegan burgers, info pamphlets, and a QR code that says, "Learn the truth." Brent says to one student, "Free food, free thinking, but always question who's feeding you." Brent checks his wrist tablet. Readouts flicker, shadow resonance detected. Behind him, the reflections in a tablet screen shows a distant tower marked subtly with the Harvest logo. Other disguised PAF agents hand out food, answer questions about sustainability. One wears a shirt that says, "Peace through plants." Now, whispered radio comm comes through Brent's ear. "Shadow readings near the dining hall. Just spiked. Could be nothing, but we're watching." "Thanks, Lynn," says Brent. "I'll look into it in a little bit." Brent glances toward the cafeteria in the distance. He frowns, tightening his grip on the tablet. And Brent says quietly, "Feels like something's about to break." Tyler approaches the booth holding a burger sample. He looks curious but cautious. "Can you actually get enough protein eating like this?" Brent nods calmly, gesturing to an info sheet. "More than enough. Athletes, fighters, even soldiers." Tyler lowers his voice, unsure. And the egg and dairy farms, they really kill the animals? Brent's expression darkened slightly. They just delay the slaughter. It's all the same machine. Tyler looks away, conflicted. He pockets the info sheet. Then Tyler says softly, "Didn't know that. Thank you." Inside the university cafeteria, Plaza 700, the university dining hall bustles with students. Carl stands in line, tray in hand, loading it with nothing but steak, boiled egg, and a carton of whole milk. His face tense, eyes darting toward a table where students gather around Z-Man's flyer. Nikki jogs up beside him, balancing a tray with a burger, fries, and a bright orange. Then Nikki says teasing, "Yo, you not getting your usual orange and triple bacon burger?" Carl glares at him and jerks his head toward his tray of pure meat. "I'm done with half measures," says Carl. "I'm carnivore now. Meat, eggs, milk, that's it." They sit at a side table. Carl pops open a greasy lunchbox. Inside are vacuum-sealed slabs of raw organ meat. He sets it beside his tray like sacred relics. Carl says, grumbling, "Plants don't build warriors. This is human fuel." Nikki raises his eyebrows, pushing his orange aside, grossed out but still trying to be supportive. Then Nikki says, "Dude, aren't you gonna get scurvy or something?" And Carl says, dead serious, "Organ meats, straight from Todd's farm. Liver's got enough vitamin C to shut your mouth and build an empire." Nikki half smiles and grimaces as Carl gulps from the milk carton. Then Nikki says, cringing, "I mean respect, but that's disgusting, bro." Carl says, muttering, "Disgust builds resilience." Carl thinks to himself, "No one ever listened when I said meat makes you strong. They'll see. They'll all see." Then Carl has a series of flashbacks. Carl used to own the room. He used to throw jokes at others' expense. He would get people to laugh at each other. Friends cheered him on, as long as they were never the target. But something shifted. Z-Man's presence awakened the halls. Compassion drowned cruelty. People stopped laughing, stopped following. They didn't call him out. They just stopped calling. Then Nikki interrupts Carl's flashback moment and says, "Yo, Carl, you good, bro? You look like you're gonna punch someone." From the cafeteria ceiling air vent, the demon general of Gluttony seeps through, a grotesque fog of shadow and spores that thickens as it spills downward. For a moment, his wings unfurl, then melt into folds of flesh and smoke, overlapping and reforming into his round, hulking shape as he lands lightly below. Black spores drift into the trays and shadows, hissing as they settle. Gluttony does not walk. He seeps. Flesh folds into smoke. Excess leaks into shadow. No vent, no crack is too small for hunger to find its way through. Gluttony says, hissing, "Size is a myth. Appetite has no shape." Behind him, a smoky wave crashes through the vent next. The demon of wrath, cloaked in flame and heat waves, clawed hands igniting as he emerges with a subtle roar, a vocal note so low the human ear can't register it. The demons fold into the cafeteria's shadows, blackness that no one dares to focus on. Some part of the human mind knows better. The shadows close in on the food trays. The organ meats swell unnaturally. Raw liver quivers, kidney slices twitch. Blood seeps into the trays, forming oily patterns that resemble grinning mouths. He corrupts the sense of touch and taste. Everything felt good, even as it turned the stomach. The shadow of gluttony needed no invitation. Where greed corrupts the belly, wrath poisons the blood. Near Carl's table, the demon of resentment oozes through the cracked tile grout. He leaks into minds with whispers and distorted glances. Resentment curdled the soul until every good thing tasted like control. They laughed with him once, but never for him. Dark mists coil into the organ meats. Carl takes a massive bite with the raw slab of liver. Blood drips down his chain. Nikki freezes mid-bite, disturbed. The spores slid in like smoke into a cracked furnace and found no resistance. Carl trembles, veins blacken and bulge. He grips a tray like it might explode. What's happening?" Wrath whispering ghostly, they laugh without you. They rise while you rot. You were always meant to burn louder. Then Carl has more flashbacks. Carl swaggering across campus in his varsity jacket, fist bumping a group of jocks. A crowd laughs behind him as he mocks a smaller student with a fake limp. Back then, they laughed when he did. He ruled the lunch table, led the gym games, and handed out insults like candy. Carl in a basketball scrimmage, teammates passing him the ball, cheering his name. Girls on the bleachers cheer. Carl grins wide, basking it in. Now present day, Carl raises his hand during class, trying to make a comment about how meat built civilization. Students avoid eye contact. One girl mutters to another, "Is he still on that?" Carl at the gym offering a high five to a fellow athlete who doesn't notice. The same group that once orbited him now circles a glowing tablet showing Z-Man singing and a protest. Someone says, "That guy's legit." Now they follow light, and his shadow has no pull. Carl standing outside a campus club poster board. Vegan meetup, free food, free thought. He scoffs. A group walks past him, wants his click. None of them acknowledge him. Power meant nothing if no one feared you, and now no one even sees him. Carl grips his fork too tight. Metal bends, his jaw tightens as he glares at the students laughing at another table. Then Nikki says quietly from across the table, "Hey Carl, you good, man?" Carl doesn't respond. He keeps staring, shadows barely flickering under the table. Then Nikki says softer, "You don't gotta prove anything. Just chill, alright? Let's hit the gym after this." Then Carl's eyes start to twitch. The shadow slithers behind his iris. "I'm done being small," Carl says coldly. Nikki recoils slightly. He looks at Carl, unsettled, like he's seeing a stranger. Wrath ignited every silence, every dismissal, every buried scream. Carl's eyes blaze red, pupils slit. Across the room, a student laughs. Something inside Carl snaps. He slams his fist into the table. Wrath arrives as heat shimmer in the ceiling lights. Sparks spit from broken fixtures. Sound distorts. Trays slam louder. Carl shouts for no reason. Where Gluttony dulled, Wrath sharpened. He didn't whisper, he boomed. It wasn't planned, but when the tray flew, it hit a student's dog close by, and the dog yelped. Silence. Eyes on Carl. Fear. Carl thinks to himself, They finally looked at me again. Then resentment says, whispering, "Now they'll never forget you. Compassion is weakness. Harmony is a lie." Carl stumbles out, veins glowing faintly. Nikki stays frozen. The shadows didn't change Carl, they amplified him. Carl disappears into the woods, just outside of campus. A pulse darkens the soil beneath each step. Where he walked, roots didn't grow, they festered, they rotted. Underground, something begins to bulge. Not roots, not life, something rotting, waiting to bloom. Tyler now walks into Plaza 700. Hands in his hoodie pocket, head slightly lowered. He blends in with the students, but his eyes quietly scan the food stations. Tyler picks up a tray. He pauses at the meat section, trays piled high with greasy cuts, then glances at the vegan options, lentil loaf, greens, beans, roasted veggies. He takes the vegan plate without hesitation. He could have chosen habit. He chose something else. Tyler sits down alone at a table. He eats slowly, almost testing the food, but his expression softens, not disgusted, not mocking, just thoughtful. He begins to notice something is off today, like the shadows are burning brighter than the light. Tyler scans the room, then notices Nikki. They make eye contact. Nikki sits apart from most of the students as well, at another empty table. He chews without enthusiasm, clearly unsettled after Carl stormed out earlier. His gaze drifts and lands on Tyler. As they make brief eye contact, neither smiles, neither nods, but the silence speaks. They both stepped away from Carl, and now they both feel it. Back inside Plaza 700, Todd stacks half-crumpled invoices in greasy folders. Todd's thick fingers shuffle frantically through the mess. Scattering papers like feathers, his jaw clenches. Sweat on his brow, a turkey leg bone still clamped in one hand. A mountain of 10 stripped clean legs rests neatly on a tray at the corner of the desk. Trophies of gluttony. Todd says, snarling and muttering to himself, "Where the hell's that shipment slip? Can't move the herd without it." Todd kicks a desk shut and stomps over to a giant cooler. He yanks it open, frost fog spilling out. Inside, stacks of blood-dripping turkey legs, wrapped in Todd's farm packaging. Todd bites down on the last shred of the leg in his hand, tosses the bone atop the tray, and grabs a fresh, steaming leg from the cooler. He gnaws it raw as he slams back into his chair, and voices still scattered. Then Todd coughed once. Then again. A black mist curled under the doorframe and into his lungs. It didn't ask for permission. It didn't need to. Dark tendrils slither between the invoices, curling around the tray of bones. Todd doesn't notice, his jaw grinding meat into pulp. Gluttony found its way back like an emperor returning to its throne. Todd stands hunched at his desk, gasping. His fingers dig into the wood as his body convulses. His apron fuses into his skin, branding itself like butcher's parchment across his chest. His eyes flicker yellow, his skin bubbles like overcooked fat. The taste of control, the thrill of excess, not just habit, identity. He didn't eat for fuel, he ate for worship. He didn't cook to feed others, he cooked to dominate them. His hand clutches a turkey leg from a platter. It hardens, mutating, muscle wrapping around the bone like cables tightening, veins pulse through the meat. The leg becomes a weapon, a flesh-covered club. And resentment was the final garnish. He didn't just crave power, he loathed those who dared to feel full without his food. Beneath Todd's office floor, something pulses. Black veins stretch from a central, unseen mass, coiling downward, clawing through the pipes and tiles. The dining hall now looks unrecognizable. The walls bulge in sweat grease. Students crawl or stagger in confusion. A student's scream loops like a broken record. Reflections in trays show twisted versions of people, teeth too sharp, eyes too wide. Shadows cling to every surface, dripping from lights, pulling under tables. Trays melt slightly on contact. The air smells like burning sugar and rot. In the corner, a single student eats mindlessly, chewing the same bite over and over, eyes glazed. When the three demons feast, reality itself starts to rot. Beneath the grease-stained fence, something began to stir. Not roots, not growth, but the first veins of something truly rotten at its core. A shaken student stumbles near a tray of food, dazed. Bits of rot still pulse faintly from the meals. One piece twitches. Tyler steps in front of the student, swats the tray aside with his arm. "Don't touch that. I don't know what's right yet, but I know this ain't it." He helps the student up, glancing nervously at the destruction. On Tyler's face, a flicker of doubt and awakening behind his eyes. Outside the dining hall, about a mile away, at the PAS event, a rumble shakes the ground. Students flee the ruined building in terror and rush down the road just past the PAS stand. What the hell was that? Brent watches smoke rise from the cafeteria. Light residue flickers in the sky. They remove the lids from their hidden crates and pull out light rifles, then move towards where the sound and terror seem to be coming from. As Brent is running, he speaks into his earpiece to comms. His scanner flickers in one hand as he sprints, light readouts jagged across a display, and Brent says, "Lynn, shadow signatures just spiked. Seems like it's coming from underground, and the shadow realm at the same time. I can't pin it." Then Lynn says, with her voice crackling through the comms, "That's not possible." Brent says, grim and dry, "Oh, it's possible. Just highly improbable. And probably world-ending if I'm right." He didn't know what it was, only that it was growing. Back at Plaza 700, T-Bone Todd bursts from the office doors, now a 15-foot-tall monstrosity of meat, grease, and fury. His apron is melted into his chest like butcher's leather armor, warped and stitched by shadow. His face is grotesquely stretched, jaw hinged wider than humanly possible. sweat and grease dripping from his temple like oil from a fryer. His right arm wields the grotesque turkey drumstick club, pulsing with veins and rage. With each step, the pavement cracks beneath his weight, sending shockwaves through the quad. T-Bone Todd says, roaring, "I'll feed this campus the old way, through fear and flesh. Taste before truth, meat before mercy." Students scream as Todd's massive frame shakes the floor, trays clattering off tables. One terrified student trips, scrambling backward on hands and knees as the shadow of the turkey club looms above them. The student says, panicking, Who are you?" Todd grins, grease dripping, teeth jagged. He raises the club high. "I'm T-Bone Todd!" The club slams down, cracking tile, food trays and splinters flying, the student barely rolling out of the way in time. Tyler shoots up from his chair, tray clattering. Nikki's eyes widen from across the room. They look at each other again, this time not just recognition, but urgency. Then Tyler says, firm but low, "Go! Get out of here!" For the first time, they weren't just surviving, they were choosing. The campus quad erupts in chaos. Students flee as T-Bone Todd storms forward, bursting through the Plaza 700 entrance and breaking a giant hole in the wall and doorway with his club. As he stomps forward, he makes dents and cracks in the cement ground from his unnaturally large body. About 500 feet away, Z-Man senses something wrong, deep beneath the soil. Not just a monster rising and all the chaos coming with him, but a dark system awakening. In that instant, the suit of Z-Man leaves, vines and light manifested over him, like instinct answering to terror. The shadow didn't infect Todd, it honored him, it crowned him, and the rotten core beneath began to bloom. Z-Man freezes, his hand trembles above the guitar. In his mind, the voice of Mother Nature, serene but firm. "Your power heals, Zachary. Never let it be a weapon." And then Zach thinks to himself, "I promised." Lockdown is sprinting towards students in need. The cement circle shudders as T-Bone Todd stomps across it, his grotesque turkey club dripping grease. The sound amplifying, Plaza magnifies every step like thunder. Chunks of cement rip loose and spin through the air. One massive slab rockets toward a terrified student frozen in the circle's center. Lockdown sprints forward across a campus path, panic in his voice. "No!" A raw blast of sound erupts from him, not trained, not controlled, but powerful. The flying slab slams into the invisible wall of sound and cracks apart, raining dust across the plaza. Lockdown halts, chest heaving. He looks up. Todd towers over the campus like a nightmare made flesh. For a heartbeat, disbelief freezes him. Then the truth hits. This isn't protest anymore. It's war. Beneath his boots, faint roots glow through the cracks in the circle. Spiraling towards him, a green shimmer pulses in his chest. His own tree of life awakens. The saved student stumbles away, wide-eyed. Lockdown staggers, staring at his hands as if they belong to someone else. That was me? Lockdown thinks to himself, this ain't just a message anymore. Z-Man's got real power, and somehow, so do I? Alright then. Time to use it. Then, he charges into battle, adrenaline surging. With a guttural scream, T-Bone Todd rips 2 chunks of his own flesh from his shoulders. They twist midair, mutating into grotesque tendrils made of rotting meat, fused with living shadow. The tendrils slam to the ground like living whips, twitching independently, dripping blood and dark energy. Chunks of Todd's skin hang loose from the wounds, but he laughs through the pain. More are already bubbling beneath the surface. "Plenty more where that came from," says T-Bone Todd, bellowing. Even as Lockdown charges, Todd's back bubbles, new tendrils already forming. Lockdown grabs 2 mid-lash and slams him into a tree. Vines burst from the bark, coiling around the twitching flesh, binding it in place. Z-Man stands still, heart racing. Chaos breaks out as the shadows begin to thicken across the quad. Lockdown shouts, rallying the frightened students. "Yo, grab whatever you got. Drums, buckets, spoons. Make some noise and move as one." A group of students begin banging on cafeteria trays and stomping the ground. Energy pulses in waves. The land responds with soft quakes and glowing vines. Where one voice trembled, many could roar. Lockdown wasn't waiting for a savior. He became one. Lockdown turns and sees Z-Man frozen, guitar raised but still. He charges towards him through the chaos. Music doesn't heal if no one's left to hear it. We ain't fighting against peace, bro. We're fighting for it. Z-Man looks up. Lockdown nods, then turns to the crowd, then turns back to Z-Man. You sing to wake people up. Now wake up and sing! Sometimes, the bridge to action is a brother's voice. Zach thinks to himself, you're right. What if not acting is the harm? Zach has a flashback. Zach's curled under the bridge, soaked and shivering, hand hovering over his guitar case, his son's laughing face blurred and golden in sunlight, the silhouette of himself, distorted, darker, reflected in a puddle beside the bridge, eyes glowing faintly. I've been quiet before, and it almost erased me. Back in the throne room, in the shadow realm, the Rotfather stands before the pulsating pit, the air thick with the stench of decay. The swirling obsidian mirror flickers widely as tendrils of shadow coil toward the monstrous pod. A terrible realization dawns.
Yes, yes. They are darker than I ever dreamed. Drenched in hate, gluttony, envy, beyond even my design.
He turns slowly, facing the massive cocoon of pulsing rot, his voice rising in reverent horror. Then Rotfather continues.
I've never seen one form like this. Not in 1,000 ages. Not even in the collapse.
He leans forward, shadows flickering across his withered face, and continues.
Their pain fed the shadows fed their rage, a spiral without end. Until now, a single beast of fused wrath. The rotten core throbs louder.
A low growl echoing from within. Rotfather says, with an evil grin.
Carl and Todd, 2 wombs, 3 weapons.
Back at the earthly realm, inside the dining hall, chaos erupts as students flee. Nicky bolts past a tipped chair. He skids to stop, sees Tyler struggling to lift a fallen student. Nicky runs back, grabs the student's other arm. Come on, man. Don't just stand there. We're getting out of here. And Tyler says sternly, not until everyone else is safe, as he glances out the window and sees T-Bone Todd rushing right towards a child. Outside of Plaza 700 now, Zach turns. Students are crying, shielding each other. T-Bone Todd's turkey leg club slams at a child. Lockdown sees this and acts quickly. His arms glow faintly with life energy, repelling the attack. Zach thinks to himself, I'm not protecting anyone. I'm letting it happen. Zach clenches his jaw, lowers his head, and slowly reaches for his guitar. Then he thinks again. I'll never fight and hate, but I won't stand by while they bleed. T-Bone Todd swings his turkey club. Z-Man dodges and slams his hand across the strings in a resonant shockwave as a tipping point to Lockdown's and the other students' chants. T-Bone Todd stumbles, disoriented. Compassion became courage. Z-Man levitates slightly as he strums faster. Light and leaves swirl around him. Each note cleanses a bit of the darkness in the air. Behind him, Lockdown's feet lift off the ground too, briefly, vines twisting around his legs like armor. Students rise together, some chant, others playing makeshift drums. Wind and vines spiral upward as the land responds to Z-Man's song. Lockdown stomps the ground. Shockwaves of the roots erupt, knocking back creeping tendrils. Lockdown says, yelling, "Let's show 'em what this earth can do." Z-Man steps forward, voice rising above the chaos, glowing with green fire, and he begins to sing.
Wake up, you're Superman. We need a hero. The world's gone so wrong. All those lost people. Look inside yourself. Find your own sequel. Wake up, you're Superman. We need a hero.
The students erupt, shouting and singing along. Their voices add to the wave. Sound becomes force. The wind strengthens. Drums thunder. Even the ground pulses in rhythm. T-Bone Todd roars, charging with full fury. Z-Man and Lockdown release a combined music blast and thunder punch, their powers intertwined like chords and bass lines. The bow slams Todd backward, cracking the pavement as he topples. Smoke and debris swirl. Todd's body twitches. Then suddenly he rises, his eyes burn with shadow fire. Zach says, gasping, "He's still standing?" Todd lets out a guttural bellow, then hurls his massive turkey club directly at Zach. LockDown reacts instantly, shoving Zach to the side. Nah, bro. Not today. The club slams into LockDown's side. Bone-crunching impact. He crashes to the ground with a grunt. With a guttural scream, T-Bone Todd's skin splits. 2 grotesque tendrils burst from his shoulders, forged from rotting flesh, fused with living shadow. They thrash like butchered limbs possessed, dripping blood and dark energy. One tendril lashes upward, snatching the turkey club mid-flight. Todd's eyes flare. The tendril whips forward again, coiling around Z-Man's leg with a wet, slithering snap. Ah! Z-Man then begins to struggle as the tendril yanks him across the pavement. Claws scraping, vines writhing, his guitar slipping from his grasp as Todd reels him in. LockDown winces on the pavement but slams a fist to the ground and says low but fierce, "Bass drop." A bass shockwave erupts from the earth beneath him. Cracks spiral out. The shadow tendril shatters, recoiling in black mist. Z-Man hits the ground free, gasping but safe. Zach says, panicked, "Lock, you okay?" LockDown groans but nods weakly. The wines around his arms flicker and dim. In the distant realm, a violet tree of life erupts skyward. LockDown's. Its leaves blaze silver as roots dig deep, fed by pain, loyalty, and courage. Some powers are born from rhythm, others from standing in the way of harm. Then, the earth quivers. A low guttural roar splits the air. The ground buckles and streetlights explode in showers of spark. Above the battlefield, shadows churn violently, forming a colossal, indistinct face in the clouds. The Rotfathers. Vast and hollowed-eyed, the Rotfather says from everywhere and nowhere,
Enough. Fear ripens the roots deeper than death.
The remaining demons freeze mid-attack, claws still raised, then slither away into cracks in the earth, vanishing in trails of black smoke. Todd stiffens, his tendrils halting mid-swing, as his eyes cloud with something darker. Compelled by the voice, he bellows in frustration, but his body obeys, the tendrils retracting slightly and twitching. Then the Rotfather says to Todd telepathically,
Let them stew in their despair. The harvest will come soon.
On the hilltop, Carl is still in the woods. Carl's breath hitches as the weight of the roar ripples through him too, his shadow curling closer around him. From the nearby street, a black harvest vehicle, massive, armored, and humming with low-frequency shadow energy, roars onto the campus walking path, crushing a bike rack and scattering leaves. Its angular frame looks part tank, part insect, reinforced with glowing glyph tech. Agent number 1 says from a loudspeaker, "Hold perimeter, Shadow Titan extraction in progress." The back of the vehicle opens like a vault. 2 harvest agents in bulky Shadow Tech suits descend a retractable ramp, exosuits hissing. One deploys a magnetic containment stretcher. Agent number 2 says, scanning Todd, "He's conscious. Spinal thrash spike is rising. Lock him before he explodes." Todd snarls, thrashing. The agents fire a containment net made of rotted energy and metallic vines. It coils around Todd's body, binding limbs as he howls. Then Todd screams, "I'll rot every nerve you've got." Agent number 1 says grimly, "We know. That's why we're keeping you." The containment stretcher hovers above the cracked pavement. Clamps slam onto Todd's limbs, and the agents load him into the vehicle, which rocks slightly from his internal surges. Agent number 2 says intercom, "Target secured. Rotfather protocol active. Returning to Hive Gate." As the vehicle pulls away down the walking path, it leaves behind a trail of scorched grass and cracked stone. The nearby sidewalk sensors fizzle out, sparking. LockDown lies injured nearby. Zach kneels beside him, breathing hard. Zach says, "You saved me, man." At that very moment, dozens of Harvest agents march in formation, their armor gleaming with shadow tech. Each drops a humming reset beacon in the cracked pavement. The device pulses black, then blooms outward in waves of shadow light. Broken tiles reform, bloodstains vanish. The shattered dining hall wall seals itself as if it were never broken. The world was forced back into shape, but it wasn't healed. It was rewound. Zach looks up, unsettled, and he thinks to himself, they can just erase it? From the hilltop, Carl watches the battle. His aura twists, his shadow stretches into a cleaver shape. He didn't understand that kind of strength. Then Carl thinks to himself, why? Why does he get all the glory? A wounded dog. the same from the dining hall, limps past Carl, fleeing the chaos left by T-Bone Todd's Rampage. In the background, a student pushes through the crowd shouting, "Peanut! Come here, girl! Peanut!" Carl turns, eyes narrowing, and he thinks to himself, helpless, weak. He'd hurt something smaller before. It made him feel real. Carl glares at the limping dog. Shadow tendrils slither forward. Then, the squirrel zips in, yelling frantically, "Operation Distraction, go is a go, go, go!" The raccoon skids in beside her, holding a half-eaten sandwich like a grenade. Then the raccoon says, "Leave the dog, Beefzilla. I've got mustard and I'm not afraid to use it." The squirrel darts between Carl's legs, tingling his steps. The raccoon hurls a sandwich like a grenade, smacking Carl in the face. Splat! Carl slips and falls with a roar, shadow tendrils flailing. A student can barely see the scene from a distance, panicked. The student yells, "Hey, what are you doing? That's my dog!" The dog limps to the student, who drops to their knees and hugs her tight. Carl growls, looking up, only to see the raccoon casually picking the sandwich back up, shrug, and take another bite. Then the raccoon says with a mouthful, "Oh, 5-second rule," as he scurries off. Carl's jaw clenches, fury overtaking him. He screams, veins pulsing black red, eyes ablaze. Carl says, screaming, "They slipped through. I almost had them." Two massive shadow cleavers form in his hands, jagged and pulsating. He swings them into nearby trees. They rot and collapse instantly. Every step he takes spoils the ground, mushrooms withering, bark blackening. His rage wasn't silent anymore. It scorched. Carl charges into the tree line, cleavers dragging trenches into the earth. Carl says, shouting, he sings and they follow. I break and they fear. Isn't that power too? Back outside Plaza 700, LockDown collapsed beside Zman, breath heavy, eyes wide as the echoes of the battle still rang in his mind. LockDown says, "That's what happens when soul meets sound." A student approaches slowly, cradling their wounded dog in their arms. Zman stops them and kneels down to be on level with the dog. Eyes worried, Zman gently takes the dog, placing it softly on the grass. He closes his eyes, one hand resting on the dog's side. Zman's fingertips glow faintly green. Light pulses outward in leafy spirals. The dog breathes easier. Its leg twitches, then steadies. It lifts its head. Then its tail slowly begins to wag. Fighting wasn't betrayal. It was a vow. To protect. The student watches in awe. "You're really doing it." Zman gives a quiet smile, still focused, and he whispers, I'm just reminding the world how to heal." Zman sits back as the dog trots away, his shoulders slump for a beat, and he thinks to himself, how many didn't get saved? How many will I miss next time? What if I fall again, and this time no one sees me climb back? Zman rises, breathing hard. His eyes drift to the massive glass windows of the Plaza building across the street. Inside, dozens of students sit scattered at tables. No one is cheering, no one is laughing. Their meals sit half-eaten, shadows of rot still clinging at the edges before fading. Faces are pale, drained. The shadows were gone, but their taste lingered. Zach thinks, they were singing with us minutes ago. Now they look hollow, like nothing mattered. Rotfather wanted my light. Maybe he got it. Zman looks at LockDown, breathing heavily. The energy is fading from their limbs. Behind them, the cracked earth still smokes where Todd hit. I froze. I almost didn't play, Zman says quietly. Then LockDown says, wiping his face, we both almost lost more than a battle, man. Zman says, they trusted us. I can't let that slip again. Then, all of a sudden, PAS. Agents arrive. Brent sweeps past in a brisk stride, eyes fixed on his scanning device. He barely glances at Zman, whose suit is scratched and glowing faintly. Brent says, brushing past, move. Brent checks his scanner, brows arched. Brent says low, looks like we missed the fireworks. Brent's eyes narrow. He checks the shadow readings on his device. If something did hit, it wasn't harvest tech. Zman and LockDown exchange a look. LockDown raises an eyebrow. Zman tilts his head slightly, confused. LockDown says, who the heck are they? Zman says softly, don't know, but they're late. Zman squints as Brent and other agents stride by. For an instant, metallic Canisters glint beneath Brent's vest, humming faintly with light. Strange coils and etched symbols flash across their rifles. Zach thinks, what was that? The agents move too quickly, their shadows stretching long across the cracked pavement. Zach lowers his gaze as they vanish into the smoke. Then LockDown and Zach turn and quietly walk away, fading into the distance as shadow tech agents fan out behind them from the shadows. Brent pushes forward, eyes locked on the scanner, twisting toward alleys and corners like he's chasing something. For a heartbeat, shapes flicker at the edges of the smoke, harvest agents slipping away in formation, shadow tech in hand gleaming before they vanish behind the buildings. Zach's brow arches as the connection clicks. He's chasing them, but they're already gone, he thinks to himself. At a distant, quiet rooftop not too far away, Cowboy Titanium gazes down at the battle below, a flicker of longing in his eyes. Mother Nature stands beside him, calm and knowing. Cowboy says, soft, reflective, I wanted to step in, to guide them, show them the way. Mother Nature says gently, sometimes the strongest roots grow only when left to weather the storm. Let them find their own path. Cowboy Titanium says, quiet, while chuckling and nodding. You're right. They're not the boys I met under that awning. They've become men now. Superhero men. Back at Carl, inside the woods, Carl slams against a tree, which rots instantly under his touch. Shadows crawl up in his body like armor. Carl, roaring, says, he protects, I dominate. He hesitates, I act. He continues, they'll see, they'll all see. No more invisibility, no more weakness. Carl's face, half-lit eyes pulse red, spit flying as he snarls. I eat nothing but meat, eggs, and milk now. No more soy lies, no more plant-based pity. I'm building something primal, something real. He slams both cleavers into the ground, sending a shock of shadow across the earth. You call yourself Z-Man-The-Vegan? Then I'll be your opposite. I'll be Carl the Carnivore. And he thinks to himself, pain isn't the enemy, it's the currency. Zach plays to wake hearts. I play to break them. Back inside the shadow realm, vicious rot bubbles and slithers down jagged black stone. The harvest vehicle breaches a jagged tear in space, driving across a rotted bridge of bone and sludge into a canyon that pulses like a wound. Inside the vehicle, Todd thrashes violently, still bound, foaming with rage. Steam coils from his skin. His eyes glow, but they're wild. He has no idea where he is. The vehicle doors burst open. A twisted chain hoist system drags Todd out on the containment stretcher. The light is dim, but a massive shadow spills across the canyon floor, growing larger and larger. The Rotfather descends, 21 feet tall, skeletal wings dripping with black bile, cracked ribs writhing with maggots. His feet crush skulls embedded in the stone with every step. Todd's expression changes. From rage to confusion to pure fear, his body jerks against the restraints, not to escape, but to shrink away. He growls, but it sounds small now. The Rotfather leans forward, staring down at Todd with burning, carnivorous eyes. He says nothing. Instead, he opens his jaw wider than humanly possible. A cyclone of rot and screams echoes from within. Todd's body locks up, muscles tense. He begins shaking violently. The black sludge around his bindings crawls into his skin, feeding, binding deeper. The Rotfather raises one hand, tendrils swirl from his fingertips and pierce into Todd's chest. Not killing him, but fusing something. Todd's eyes roll back. His veins pulse with spreading black. The cannon shrinks under the Rotfather's weight. Todd lies at his feet, not dead, but changed, broken, still growling, but now waiting for orders. The core feeds, the flesh obeys. Then, the Rotfather moves to his throne room. Moments later, the Rotfather snarls from his grotesque throne, formed from fused bones and roots. Shadowy veins pulse through the walls. The Rotfather says, growling,
He sings louder now, but the chorus of despair is eternal.
Mortem stands cloaked in shadow before a swirling obsidian mirror. Its surface flickers with visions of Z-Man's music awakening hearts, light breaking darkness. But Mortem doesn't look up. Below him, an abyss yawns wide, pulsing with sickly light. Fleshy chains stretch deep, barely restraining a grotesque, rotting mass. The rotten core. It stirs. The Rotfather says,
Feed it. Let it remember hunger. Let it grow.
He was not born to destroy, but balance demands bitter offerings. With a wave of his skeletal hand, shadows slither across the floor, crates collapse, pens open, live animals, goats, pigs, chickens, rise, writhing, tethered by shadow. They cry out, they fight, but the shadows are stronger. Mortem's eye sockets flicker, his jaw clenches. Mortem says, barely a whisper, "Forgive me." The animals spiral downward. A massive, unseen mouth opens in the dark and bites. Crunch. The chains strain. The rotten core pulses violently. Within, twisted shapes move. Barely formed limbs, hints of faces. One pair of eyes flickers open. Born of Carl's fury, forged in Todd's gluttony. The rotten core, not shaped by design, but by the apathy that devours this world. Back at Carl's apartment, dim light glows from the hallway as the door opens. Carl enters, bruised, shaken, eyes sunken from the shadow. In the shadows of his apartment, 2 harvest agents wait in long black coats, their insignia barely visible. Harvest agent number 1 says, smiling, "The Rotfather sees promise in your bones, Carl. We're offering you a place, a purpose." Harvest agent number 2 says, "Tomorrow, Z-Man sings again. You'll be ready?" Just down the hallway, in Tyler's room, his door is cracked open. Tyler lies still, eyes shut, pretending to sleep. But then, one eye cracks open, faintly glowing with a deep electric blue. His jaw tightens. He's listening. Outside, the wind howls, the trees stir. Something's waking up. The world was splitting, not into good and evil, but into those who acted and those who stayed silent. Every battle feels like an ending, but it never is. The shadows don't die, they wait. And sometimes I wonder if the hardest fight isn't out there at all, but in here. We stood our ground today, but the truth is, shadows don't leave when the light comes. They follow. And one day, they just might catch up. Thank you. See you in episode 4.
Wake up, you're Superman.